A Doberman. Puppy was burned and left to die. What he did changed my life forever. Late afternoon. The Ozark woods were so still it felt wrong. No birds, no wind. Just that sound, thin rasping, broken like someone moaning through a crushed throat. I froze on the trail. At first I thought it was an animal caught in a trap. But when the sound came again sharper, tearing through the silence, my chest tightened. It wasn't like anything I'd ever heard before. I dropped my basket and followed it. Dry leaves cracked beneath my boots.
It's all right.
The smell of smoke threaded through the air.
Just get this off.
A few steps later, I saw gray smoke rising between the pines. When I stepped out of the trees, I stopped breathing. In the clearing was a circle of glowing embers, red and cruelly perfect. And inside that circle, a puppy. A Doberman, maybe 3 months old. Black and rust coat patches burned away. Its head was wrapped in a filthy black cloth. A rusted chain was driven into the ground, holding its neck in place. Each time it tried to move, the coals hissed. It twitched, stumbled, and the sound of sizzling flesh filled the air when its paws touched the heat. Then came the whimper, that sound, sharp as a blade slicing through my ribs. I couldn't breathe. The stench of smoke mixed with burning meat made me sick. My whole body locked up. I just stared, hands trembling, heart hammering against bone. Its back legs were swollen, blistered raw, skin peeled, stuck with black resin. It tried to crawl to escape the fire ring but had no strength left. Its head jerked, weakly lifting toward me as if it could hear my breathing. No one else was there. No engines, no voices. Just the dog and me. And I knew. This wasn't an accident. Someone had tied it there, lit the fire, and walked away. The place reeked of cruelty. I stepped back. 2 voices clashed inside my skull. Stay out of it, Travis. Walk away. If you walk away, it dies, and so do you in every way that matters. My chest burned. I looked at that tiny, shaking body fighting for breath inside the flames. I thought of the eyes hidden beneath that cloth, maybe searching for a miracle. It stopped crying. Just trembled, shallow breaths like smoke rising. Its back legs gave out. "No," I whispered, "not yet." I threw my hat aside and tore off my jacket. No thinking, no plan. My body just moved. 1 step, 2, the heat slammed into my face, burning the air from my lungs. I dropped low, swinging the jacket over the coals. Sparks leapt up, biting into my arms. Still, I lunged forward, grabbed the chain and pulled hard. It was so hot I swore my palms were on fire. The metal seared my skin, the smell of scorched flesh rising with the smoke. The puppy whimpered, faint but alive. "I got you," I shouted. "I'm here." I yanked, twisted, fought the stake. It wouldn't budge. I scanned the ground, spotted a rock by a pine root. Grabbed it, swung down. Clang. Sparks exploded. I hit it again. Clang. My eyes burned tears, mixing with smoke, but I saw the chain crack. 1 last swing, metal shattered. I dropped the rock, scooped the dog into my arms. Its body was light as ash. The skin is hot, wet, heart is fluttering weakly. I pressed it against my chest and ran from the circle, lungs tearing with every breath. We collapsed on cold dirt. The cloth still covered its eyes. I ripped it off. 2 eyes blinked up, clouded by smoke, yet deep, still wet with life. When I touched its head, it licked my finger. Just once. Soft as breath. I broke. Not from pain, but from knowing it still believed in people, even after what people had done. I wrapped it in my jacket, lifted it close. Its back legs curled, skin blistered like melting wax. "Hold on, kid," I whispered. "I'm getting you out of here." I turned and ran, mud splashing up my legs, the fire hissing behind me. And just before the woods closed in, I heard it, the wind moving through the dying coals, whispering my name like a ghost. "You came back, Travis." I drove like a madman. Smoke and melted plastic still clung to my clothes. My jacket was wrapped so tightly around the puppy that I worried I might hurt him. But if I loosened it, the cold night air could kill him. Headlights carved through the winding dirt road that cut across the woods. Wind slipped through the cracked window and stung my eyes raw. Every time the truck jolted, he whimpered soft, thin, almost a sigh. The only thing I could say over and over was, "It's okay, kid, just a little further, just hold on." 10 minutes from Jasper stood a small clinic riverside vet run by Dr. Ellie Brooks. I'd known Ellie for years. My wife used to take her cat there. She was the one person I knew wouldn't ask questions. When I screeched to a stop out front, the green neon sign was still glowing. The bell above the door rang ting as I pushed in. Ellie looked up from her desk, eyes widening when she saw me, a burned man, clutching a trembling, blackened creature to his chest. God. Travis, what happened? I don't know. But if you don't help him, he won't make it through the night. She didn't waste a breath. The switch flipped doctor mode. She pointed, and I laid him on the cold steel table. The metal hissed against his skin, and he let out a small cry. His back legs curled in red and swollen blisters rupturing across patches of raw flesh. I turned away, throat burning. Ellie moved quickly, painkiller saline ointment. Her hands were steady, her silence louder than any words. I watched her work, listened to the click of instruments, the short gasps from his chest, and felt a strange stillness inside me, half agony, half relief. When she finished wrapping the bandages, her voice came soft but certain. "He's burned bad, Travis. Back legs, deep tissue damage. Might never walk right again." I nodded. The only thing that mattered was that he was still breathing. She handed me a plastic crate lined with blankets, water, and medicine. "I can't keep him overnight," she said. "No open kennels. Take him home. Keep him warm. Watch his breathing. I'll come by in the morning." I carried him back to the cabin. The fire in the stove was down to embers. I set him on the rug near the hearth, wrapped him in my late wife's blanket. The air smelled of antiseptic and smoke. I sat beside him, listening to the wind knocking at the windows, listening to his fragile breath beside my boot. For the first time in years, I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't pour a drink. I didn't need noise to fill the silence. That night, I kept watch till dawn. Every time he whimpered, I reached out and stroked his head, whispering, "You're safe now. Sleep, little warrior." When dawn broke, silver mist hung over the Ozarks. I looked out the window. Everything seemed new. In the mirror, I saw my face smudged with soot blisters on my hands, hair singed at the edges, but in my eyes, there was something I hadn't seen in a long time light. I remembered my wife's last night in the hospital. Her hand was gripping mine. Her voice was faint but steady. "You have to keep living, Travis. If not for yourself, then for someone else." I'd buried that sentence for 3 years. But now, looking at the small life breathing beneath that blanket, I finally understood what she meant. Ellie came by in the morning carrying more medicine and a jar of liquid food. "He's alive," she said with a tired smile. "But it'll take time." I named him Ash, because he came out of the fire, and maybe I was trying to do the same. For the first 3 days, Ash didn't eat, didn't move. I cleaned his body, gave him water through a syringe, and pressed warm towels against his legs every morning. He hurt, but he never cried. Just looked at me silent, steady, as if he knew I was trying. On the 4th night, as I was clearing the table, he moved for the first time, a faint flick of his tail. I froze, watching that tiny motion tap against the blanket. Tears came before I knew it. I laughed, sitting there alone in that cabin, and whispered, "Yeah, Ash, we'll make it. From now on, neither of us walks through the fire alone." 3 days after pulling him from the fire, I could still hear that sound in my head, not in dreams awake. Every time the wind whistled through the pines, I heard Ash's faint whimper mingled with the crackle of burning wood. I kept seeing that circle of embers. I didn't know who did it, but I knew one thing: I couldn't pretend it hadn't happened. On the fourth morning, I rewrapped the burns on my hands, gave Ash his medicine, and got the truck ready. He lay, swaddled in the blanket, back legs still bandaged, eyes barely open. I bent close and whispered, "I need to go back there. Won't be long." Ash blinked once. A soft exhale left his chest like a quiet yes. The road back was slick from the night's rain. Tires slid through mud until I killed the engine and walked the rest of the way. The air was cold damp, thick with the ghost of old smoke. When I reached the clearing, I stopped. Everything was still there, the ring of ash now cold and gray, the rusted chain half buried in dirt. No footprints, no tire marks, just silence heavy enough to hurt. I knelt and touched the ground. The soil was brittle, black, charred. Near the edge, a small paw print, round and shallow ashes before he fell. I breathed in, and the faint scent of burnt flesh hit the back of my throat. Half buried in soot was the black cloth that once covered his eyes. I picked it up. The edges were singed. I clenched it in my fist. Someone had done this. Maybe a drunk. Maybe someone who thought pain was sport. But what froze my blood was this thought: they'd stood right here, where I was standing now, watched that little body twist and scream, and felt nothing. I looked around. The Ozark woods were calm, pretending they'd seen nothing. Only the ashes at my feet proved any of it was real. I scooped a handful into a small glass jar, then covered the burned patch with dirt. I didn't know if it meant anything, but I needed to do it. When I got back to the truck, Ash was resting with his head on the seat, eyes turned toward the window. I laughed under my breath, the weight in my chest easing for the first time. "I know," I said. "You wanted to come back too, didn't you?" The rest of the day, I stayed with him. I helped him drink water, spooned a bit of the mashed food Ellie had left. Every time I touched his hind legs, he twitched, but never snapped. He just looked at me, silent, patient. That night, rain whispered against the roof. I built a fire, and the golden light flickered against the cabin walls. Ash lay on the rug near the stove, back legs stretched out, breathing steady. I watched him, then looked at my burned hands. For 3 years I hadn't touched anyone, hadn't cared for anything living. The feeling of being needed burned warmer than the fire itself. I remembered what Ellie said when she'd handed me the medicine yesterday. "He'll need time, Travis. But honestly, I think he's helping you more than you're helping him." She was right. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew. Every time Ash opened his eyes just to check that I was still there, I felt something inside me start to mend. On the 6th day, he tried to stand. Front legs first shaking, trembling, then the back. They barely held, but he tried. I dropped my tools and knelt beside him. "Easy, Ash. I'm here." He looked at me, took another step. His hind legs slipped and he fell, but he didn't cry out. I caught him before he hit the floor. He rested his head against my chest, breathing hard. I rubbed his back and felt his heartbeat against mine. And I realized life isn't always the loud kind that roars. Sometimes it's just a weak pulse that refuses to stop no matter who tried to snuff it out. That night, I opened the glass jar and sprinkled a little of the forest ash into the fireplace. The flames caught swirling orange and gold, lifting the dust into light before it disappeared. I looked at Ash and whispered, "From now on, it's you and me. No more fires." He raised his head, one ear twitching, the firelight dancing in his dark eyes. And I swear, I saw him smile. The first morning of April came wrapped in fog. The Ozark woods were blanketed in silver mist as I changed Ash's bandages, wiped away the old ointment, and carried him out to the porch. The first light of day slipped through the trees, spilling across his dark coat. He drew a small breath, eyes opening halfway, gazing into the distance as if something inside him was finally ready. "All right, kid," I said, my voice rough from another sleepless night. "Let's try again today." 2 weeks had passed since I pulled him from the fire. The burns on his hind legs had faded to a pale pink, still swollen, but no longer raw. The muscles, though, were weak, almost gone. Each time he tried to stand, he fell. Each fall came with a soft cry, and every cry drove a splinter deeper into my chest. I slid my hands beneath his chest, lifting gently. "Easy, Ash, don't be scared." He trembled, then tried to move. 1 step, then 2. His tail twitched slightly, but a second later his back legs slipped, and his small body collapsed against my leg. He didn't whimper this time, just breathed hard, shaking, trying to hide the pain. I stroked his head. "It's okay. You're okay." But I wasn't. The helplessness pressed down on me like a weight. I had seen him crawl out of fire, survive something no creature should. Now all I wanted was to see him walk to prove that pain like that meant something. I looked at those thin legs wrapped in white gauze. They shook just like I had that night stepping through the burning circle to reach him. We both carried scars no one could see, and we were both still learning how to stand again. I took a deep breath. "One more time, Ash." This time, I wrapped my arms around his chest, lifted gently, letting his back paws touch the ground. He looked up at me, eyes deep and black, then inhaled slow and deliberate, like he understood what I was asking. He moved forward. 1 inch, 2. Each motion was a tremor. I heard his breath rasp, but he didn't stop. 5 steps, 6. Then he fell. I caught him before he hit the floor, holding him close. His body was hot, heart racing, fast breath, sharp and shallow. I pressed my palm against his chest and whispered, "You did good, little warrior." He looked up, panting, and licked my finger, the same soft, trembling lick he gave me the night I carried him out of the flames. All morning we repeated it, stand, fall, stand, fall. I lost count somewhere between exhaustion and hope. By the time the sun climbed high, sweat soaked through my shirt, my hands ached, and Ash lay stretched on the porch chest, heaving but quiet. No more cries. That afternoon Ellie came by. She smiled when she saw him struggling to lift himself, tail wagging weakly in greeting. "He's learning to trust his legs again," she said. I nodded. "So am I." She studied me for a moment, then touched my shoulder. "You know, Travis, not everyone would have gone back into those woods. Not everyone would have done what you did." I looked away. I didn't have a choice. "You're right," she said with a small, knowing smile. "Most people still choose to walk away." That night after she left, I sat on the porch. Ash lay beside my boots. The forest was quiet but alive, only the faint chorus of crickets. I looked at the scar burned into my hand, the one shaped like twisted iron. Beside me, Ash's hind legs twitched and stretched, trembling but moving. The fire inside the cabin burned low, flickering against the window glass. I listened to his breathing, steady, calm, until it melted into sleep. I whispered, "You see, Ash, we're walking through the fire again." But this time, not to survive to live. That night, the crying in my head stopped. There was only the sound of Ash's breathing, even peaceful, like a second heartbeat beside mine. The next morning, I opened the door and sunlight spilled across the porch. Ash took a step outside on his own. Slow but steady. 4 paws touching the earth. On the 5th step, he turned back to look at me, eyes shining with something that hadn't been there before. I smiled, throat tight, that warm, burning feeling spreading through my chest. "Good boy," I said. "You did it." Ash wagged his tail and let out a short, clear bark, strong and bright. The sound tore through 3 years of silence in my wooden cabin. I knelt down, placed a hand against his chest, and whispered, "We both walked through the fire, Ash. And this time, neither of us got left behind." 3 weeks after Ash took his first steps, the cabin wasn't silent anymore. Not because of music or radio, but because of the tiny scrape of paws on old wood, the steady rhythm of his breathing when he slept, and sometimes a faint bark that sounded like a dream trying to remember itself. Each morning, sunlight slipped through the window and spilled across the rug where he lay. I knelt beside him, unwrapped the bandages, and cleaned the healing scars. The skin had closed, still tender and pink. I used warm water cotton in the gentlest voice I could manage. "It's okay, buddy. Just a little more." Ash rarely made a sound. He endured, quietly watching me with that deep, calm gaze that made me feel small. Maybe because I understood he was teaching me how to be silent without being lonely. On the 10th day, Ellie stopped by. She watched Ash take a few slow steps across the porch tail, swaying lazily, then smiled. "I told you," she said, "he's tougher than both of us." She left more medicine, a few instructions. Before leaving, she paused at the door. "You look different, Travis." I raised a brow. "Different how alive," she said softly. I chuckled. "Guess I've got her to thank for that." That night, I sat by the fire reading an old paper while Ash rested his head on my leg. From time to time, he looked toward the window, then settled again. Those moments made me realize the cabin that once felt like a cell now felt like a home. I started cleaning, put away the empty bottles, wiped the dust from my wife's photo, placed it on the shelf beside Ash's small water bowl. I didn't know what she would think of this life of this dog, but I believed she'd smile. One morning, when I opened the door, Ash barked. The first real bark since the fire, short, sharp, certain. I jumped, then laughed out loud. "Well, look at you," I said. "You finally got your voice back." He wagged his tail, eyes bright, as if he understood every word. After that, whenever I stepped outside, he'd drag himself to the door, watching me go. At first, I only went to the yard, then farther into the woods, and every time I came back, he greeted me with a single bark, clear and strong. The house had found its heartbeat again, 2 lives breathing in rhythm. On the 20th night, a storm rolled in. Thunder cracked, and Ash trembled. I remembered that other storm, the one where he'd panicked and bolted toward the trees. I pulled him close, laid my hand over his chest. "It's all right, Ash. You're home. You're safe now." He pressed his head against my shoulder body, warm heartbeat wild, then slowing. Outside, thunder still roared, but inside there was only calm. I realized we were both relearning trust, not through words, but through presence. On the 25th day, the rain finally stopped. The earth still glistened when Ash stepped out onto the porch, paused for a second, then trotted forward steady on all fours. I followed without speaking. He turned back, once tail-wagging eyes bright, unafraid. We sat on the porch until sunset. The light fell through the pines, painting his black and rust coat gold. I whispered, "You know, Ash, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life in silence. But you came along and brought sound with you. You reminded me that peace isn't the same as loneliness." He nestled his head against my knee. I rested my hand on his shoulder and felt the slow, even breath beneath my palm. When night settled, I looked around the cabin. It was still small, still old, but everything felt alive again. The crackle of the firewood, the soft drip of rain from the roof, the quiet breathing of a soul that had once been burned, now sleeping beside me, and I understood. Healing doesn't come from miracles. It comes from a small life reminding you how to feel again. "Sleep well." "Ash," I whispered. "I think I will too, for the first time in 3 years." Outside, the wind moved through the pines. No more cries of pain. Only the sound of life, steady, calm, and whole. The storm came on an April night. The sky turned the color of lead wind, howling through the pines, scattering the pile of leaves I'd gathered by the porch. I watched clouds roll low, and heavy smelled rain, mixing with earth and wood smoke. Ash lay by the door, head resting on his front paws, eyes fixed on the dark outside. "It's all right," I said softly. "Just rain." But I knew better. He was afraid. The first thunderclap exploded like a cannon, and he flinched hard, his tail-tucked body trembling. That tremor, I'd seen it before the night he was trapped in that circle of fire. I shut the door, pulled the curtains, and fed more wood into the stove. Rain thickened, drumming against the tin roof. Another flash, another boom, closer this time. Ash whimpered, crawling off the rug, searching for a place to hide. I stepped over and laid my hand on his back. "It's okay, Ash. No one's gonna hurt you now." He didn't look at me. His eyes were wide, his breath shallow-trapped, as if the walls themselves were closing in. I knelt and wrapped my arms around his head. "Listen to me," I whispered. "You're safe here. No more fire, no more pain." His whole body stiffened and jerked away. He tore from my hands, bolting toward the door, claws raking the wood as he whined. I froze, heart pounding. For a split second, I saw myself, 3 years ago, same panic, same desperate urge to run from the hurt, not knowing where it would lead. I stood, opened the door. Rain lashed my face, sharp and cold. I let him choose. He stepped outside, paws sinking in mud head low, his small frame swallowed by the storm's gray curtain. I didn't follow right away. I let him go, watched his silhouette vanish between the trees. Only when the next thunder cracked did I run after him. The ground was slick, the rain slanting sideways. Each step felt heavier than the last. "Ash," I shouted, "come back, buddy, I'm here." No answer, only rain and the ragged beat of my own heart. I followed the old trail into the clearing, the place where everything had begun. When I reached it, my breath caught. Ash was there, sitting in the mud right in the spot where the fire once burned. His body drenched, shaking. His back legs were tucked beneath him, unable to rise. I moved closer, slow, letting the rain soak through my clothes. I didn't call his name again. Didn't command. I just sank to my knees and let the water stream over my face, my hands. "Ash," I said quietly, "we don't have to be here anymore. We made it out of the fire." He didn't move. His eyes stayed on the black patch of earth where the flames had once lived. I understood he was reliving it, the same way I'd relived the night my wife slipped away every single night since. I opened my hand palm up and left it there in the rain. "If you still trust me, come here." The wind passed through, carrying a chill that bit deep. 1 minute, 2. I thought he wouldn't move. Then he did. One paw forward, then another. His body shook violently as he fought to lift his hind legs from the mud. I held my breath. He slipped, fell. A cry tore out of him, sharp, broken, but he tried again. This time he crawled, dragging himself closer until his head pressed against my chest. I wrapped my arms around him. Rain and tears blurred together until I couldn't tell which was which. "Good boy, Ash," I whispered. "We came back, and this time no one gets left behind." We stayed like that for a long time, sitting in the storm. Rain hammered down, thunder rolled, but neither of us moved. When I finally stood, I lifted him into my arms. His body was warm and trembling, his breath soft against my neck. Back at the cabin, I wrapped him in a blanket, dried him with a towel. Outside, the storm still raged, but inside there was only the crackle of fire and the distant hiss of wind through the trees. I sat on the floor, and he rested his head on my knee, still shaking, but not from fear. That night I told him what I'd learned only because of him. "Tonight, you showed me something I never understood before. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's walking back into the place that broke you, and believing this time it'll be different." I ran a hand along his back. "You did that, Ash, and because of you, so did I." Outside, the storm began to fade. The rain softened to a whisper, the wind sighing through the pines. I looked at his hind legs, muddy scraped, but stronger than before. He slept soundly. In his sleep, his legs twitched as if he were running. I smiled and whispered, "Run, kid. Run toward the dawn." 2 years had passed since that stormy night. Now, when it rains, Ash doesn't flinch anymore. He sits by the window, head slightly tilted, watching the drops fall from the eaves. Each time thunder rolls his ears, twitch once, then settle calm, certain as if to remind me, "See? We made it through." I sit at the old desk in the cabin, still smelling of pine resin and wood smoke. In the corner hangs my wife's photograph beside a newer one, me and Ash standing together under the sign Ozark Auto and Rescue Garage. I don't just fix cars anymore. I help people rescue the ones left behind, dogs, cats, the forgotten. A portion of the shop's profit now goes to saving lives no one else wants to see. Ash is always beside me. He's grown now. Broad shoulders, black coat, gleaming in sunlight, strong hind legs with only faint scars left. Every morning he waits by the door until I unlock it. When the bell rings ting, he lifts his head, tail wagging, greeting the world with the quiet breath of faith. People in Jasper call him the dog from the fire. Kids run up to pet him. The elderly smile when they see him leading me through the market at dusk. But to me, Ash isn't a symbol. He's my friend, my family, the voice of something I once lost. Some afternoons we sit by the riverbank. The breeze is soft, the pines whispering above. I toss a pebble into the water. Ripples spread, and Ash runs along the edge, his powerful legs churning through the grass. Each time he turns back, his eyes meet mine, calm, steady, real. There are no words between us. None is needed. A glance, a breath, that's enough. I still remember the first time he licked my hand in the fire. Now, when he rests his head on my leg each night, I know it's the same message, the same quiet promise, I'm here. And I answer silently, so am I. One June morning, Ellie stopped by. She parked outside the shop smiling as she saw Ash stretched out in the sun. "You know, Travis," she said, "when I first met you, I thought you were the one saving him. But now I see it clearly, it's him who saved you." I smiled, scratching Ash's head. "Guess we both won, huh?" She shook her head gently. "No. 3 of you did him you and every soul that'll be saved because of what you two started." That afternoon, I closed the shop early. Ash and I drove out to the woods, the place where it had all begun. The dirt road was green now, grass reclaiming what once burned. I knelt, pressing my hand to the earth. The ashes had long mixed with soil. New saplings rose in their place. Ash circled, sniffing every root and stone, then came to sit beside me. From my pocket I pulled a small glass jar, the one I'd kept for 2 years. Inside, a handful of ash from that old fire. I opened the lid and poured it into the ground. The wind stirred, carrying the dust into the light. "We're done, Ash," I whispered. "No more fire, no more pain. Just life." Ash lifted his head-tail, swaying. He placed a paw on my knee and touched my hand with his nose. No words, none needed. We sat there until the sun dipped behind the hills. The last light washed over him, turning his black coat into a warm copper glow like fire, but gentle, forgiving. And I thought maybe life isn't about avoiding the flames. Maybe it's about walking through them and finding yourself on the other side. Ash looked out toward the horizon, his amber eyes reflecting the fading light. I murmured, half prayer, half truth. From ashes, we became each other's light. When we left the forest, I turned once more. The ashes were gone. The woods were green. That night, the cabin glowed softly. Ash slept by the fire, his breathing slow and sure. I sat nearby listening to him, to the crackle of the logs, to the quiet that no longer hurt. Every shadow inside me seemed to fade. I understood then not everyone gets a second chance. But sometimes that chance doesn't come from people. It comes from a small, wordless soul. If anyone asked what I believe in, I'd say this: I believe in eyes that listen, in burned legs that still learn to walk, in love that doesn't need words, the kind that can pull a person out of darkness with nothing more than a gentle touch. And when Ash opened his eyes and looked at me, I knew we'd both been born again. From the ashes. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it. Someone out there might need to believe in second chances. Have you ever been saved by the quiet love of an animal? Tell us your story in the comments below. We read every single one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to help more souls like Ash find their way home. Because sometimes, one small act of kindness can change 2 lives.